just to start off, Jon, perhaps you can just give us my first question would be, how did you become CEO? What's your background? How did you get to perhaps where you are today? Give us a...
Well, first and foremost, thanks for inviting me on. Much appreciated. And also want to say, hope everyone is keeping safe and well, and that you're looking after your families and everyone's looking after each other. It's dreadfully difficult times, but look after each other. In terms of my career journey, I'm a local lad. I was born and bred in Twickenham. I went to Trafalgar Junior School in Twickenham, and then went on to Teddington Boys, which is now, I think, a co-ed school. I think I just missed out on the year that Keira Knightley went into the school, so quite unfortunate for me there. I had no idea what I was going to do when I left school, and went to see a career advisor, and they suggested I become a plumber. So I did a plumbing apprenticeship for about 6 months, and sadly the company I was working for went under and I was made redundant. But as a kid, I worked at the rugby stadium at Twickenham doing the scoreboard. So pre-electric scoreboard days where you had to wind the scoreboard over. I used to do that. And I got to know a guy called Richard Ankerson who ran the ticket office. And a job became available in the ticket office at Twickenham. And I started on a part-time basis in there. But was a brilliant place for me to really start out my career in sport, because everything really in the world of sport comes back to filling venues and fulfilling ticketing. I was really lucky that just before kind of Rugby World Cup in 1991, they decided that they were going to redevelop part of Twickenham Stadium, and the North Stand got built. And there were 50 executive boxes in the North Stand, and they needed someone to sell them. So I put my hand up and said, I'll do that. And really that was the kind of platform for me to get into the world of sports marketing, because it put me in touch with 50 of probably the UK's biggest companies at a very, very senior level. I then worked through Rugby World Cup in 1991. And then in about 1992-93, I left the RFU with my then boss, was a guy called Mike Coley, and we set up a business called Dorna UK. And it was the company that bought in, if you all remember, the rotating advertising hoardings around football stadiums. And we won the contract to effectively centralise and sell the first of the Premier League deals. I was fortunate enough to be involved in that process where we brought in a lot of new sponsors into the Premier League. I did that for a couple of years and then had the opportunity to go and work for Coca-Cola. I looked after the sponsorship of Coca-Cola's football activities, the Coke Cup in England, Coke Cup in Scotland, and Euro 96, that kind of eat football, sleep football, drink Coca-Cola campaign that they used to run. In about 97, after Euro 96, I got the opportunity to meet a guy called Theo Paphitis, who you've probably all heard of from Dragon's Den fame. He had a business called Movie and Media Sports. And he asked me to come and join that organisation. I had a great couple of years working with Theo, at the point where he actually acquired Millwall Football Club. I remember him driving to my house one morning and said, I've acquired a football club. And I thought, oh dear me, what have you done here? And we jumped in the car, and I thought we were going to go down to Southampton, because at that point Southampton was pretty much up for grabs. But we didn't. We kind of drove into central London, got to Vauxhall Bridge and turned right over Vauxhall Bridge, and ended up at the New Den. And, you know, the club had just literally come out of administration. So I helped him find some sponsors, the infamous live TV, the Weather in Norwegian on the front of the Millwall shirt all those years ago. I did a deal which probably was the most lucrative commercial contract at the time for Millwall with, do we all remember Dream Team on Sky? That was all filmed at the New Den. Had a couple of great years with Theo, Ian and Chris, two other colleagues there. And then we were lucky enough to sell that business to a big American sports marketing agency called Octagon. And at Octagon, I headed up all of the commercial sales division and looked after a lot of their rugby properties at that time, the British and Irish Lions and the Heineken Cup. Timing is everything in people's careers, and I was talking to Premiership Rugby, which was pretty much a fledgling kind of league at that point, about going in there and becoming their commercial director. And just before I agreed to go there, Johnny Wilkinson slotted a drop goal. England won the Rugby World Cup, and all of a sudden kind of rugby just bounced. And I had 8 fabulous years at Premiership Rugby. I looked after all of the commercial activities in, you know, television rights, sponsorship, looked after the Premiership Rugby finals, which was all about driving increased ticketing and gate receipts from their activities at Twickenham. As I said, had 8 years there, and then got the opportunity to hook up again with some colleagues that I worked with at Octagon in a company called Pitch International. And Pitch was at that point best known really for its international TV distribution. So effectively looked after the FA, the Football League, and various other sports organisations, and sold their international TV rights. So, but at that point they were in discussion with the Brazilian national football team about doing more than just TV rights for them. And they approached me about coming in to look after that project. And in the 6 years that I was at Pitch, I think we organised best part of 50 matches for the Brazil football team, everywhere from Sao Paulo to New York to Washington. We did games in Melbourne. We even did games in Beijing. So had a great time there. Had the opportunity then to sell my shareholding, and I then set up another small agency, and the phone rang from a recruitment company, and they said, you're a Brentford fan, aren't you? I said, yep. Would you be interested in the Brentford CEO role? I said, not a chance, no. That's where I go at the weekends to get away from it all. And anyway, I started to read the brief, and I spoke to my wife, Carol, and I said, do you know what, I can do this, and I really want to do it. And we thought long and hard about it, put my hat in the ring. 4 interviews later, I was appointed CEO and started there in kind of March 2019.
John, sorry to start with probably a rather pessimistic question, but I'm just conscious that in the current football environment, a lot of owners are currently re-evaluating their positions with regards to club. And I just wondered to what extent there is a succession plan or a contingency plan that is in place, you know, in case that, you know, something happens in the world that would lead Matthew to take a different avenue. I mean, it's a tricky hypothetical question, but I'm just kind of curious to know to what extent that sort of contingency planning goes on at a championship club.
Look, I think, you know, I think we're going to use the word unprecedented a few times today, aren't we? You know, clearly with what's happening at the moment, you know, there isn't a business on the planet that isn't being impacted by COVID-19. You know, any organisation that has its kind of revenue cut off will suffer at a point in time. You know, for some businesses, that can happen in 2 weeks. For other businesses, it can happen in 2 months, and for other businesses, it might happen in 2 years' time. All I know is, Matthew's still very, very committed to Brentford Football Club. We're putting in real contingency plans around trying to make sure that we're operating as cost effectively as we possibly can be. We're looking at kind of numerous budget scenarios, and I genuinely believe that we are getting ourselves in the best possible place for what we're all encountering at the moment. I don't think Matthew's commitment remains very strong. Why wouldn't it be? We're at an incredibly exciting time for the football club. We're sitting fourth in the Sky Bet Championship. We've got a real chance of getting into the Premier League. I think our job is to make sure that the football club is in the most robust of financial positions.
Morning, John. Thanks for this.
Good morning, Richard.
Yeah, just a sort of another bit of a hypothetical one, but hopefully something that might have been considered already. With the sort of chances of games at Griffin Park being attended sort of seemingly sort of receding by the day, has the club sort of thought yet about what other farewell to Griffin Park type of events might be in place if we haven't got a chance to go and see another game?
Yeah, look, I think we're incredibly mindful of the fact that, we need to say a proper farewell to Griffin Park. We had and were planning, some quite extensive activities for the Barnsley match. I'd got to a position with Barnsley where we'd agreed for them to take a reduced capacity in the away end so that we could get more Brentford fans into the stadium. We had a brilliant plan for a high definition camera to be installed in Griffin Park, where effectively it could take a 360-degree picture of the match day, and every fan could see themselves within that image. But sadly, those plans look like they're very much on the back burner at the moment. Look, we will do everything in our power to make sure that our fans get the opportunity to say goodbye to the stadium. And, as and when we know more, we will start to kind of work those plans through. But, it's our strong intention to make sure that everyone has the ability to say goodbye.
Hi, good morning, and thank you very much for making the time available to do this today. A question is with regard to the new stadium, and recognising that it's probably some time before we'll all come out of the current situation. What, if any, contingency plans are you able to put in place in case the new stadium isn't ready for the start of the new season?
First and foremost, I think we, despite everything that's happening around us, we're in the incredibly fortunate position that we were coming to the end of the stadium development. So it's not as if we've got 3 stands up and the 4th one's being built. It's not as if the pitch hasn't been laid. It's not as if a load of work hadn't been carried out. We were getting very much towards the end. As I put in the open letter the other week, the site was closed down for a very short period of time, but a very, very reduced amount of work is now taking place on that site. And it's all around, what we would say kind of critical pieces of technology around CCTV, fire and safety, electrical areas, trying to make it all safe. We're confident we're in the best possible place and the best possible hands to make sure that the stadium is completed. When that is going to be, I cannot tell you, and I defy anyone to be able to tell you. But I am, and everyone at Brentford is confident we're in as good a shape as we can be at a time where there is so much doubt around.
Hi, John. Do you prefer to be called Reg or John?
You can call me Reg. That's absolutely fine. It's funny actually because everybody in my rugby career, when I was working in rugby, called me Reg. And everyone at my cricket club calls me Reg. But when I started here, no one had heard of me as Reg. So I'm back to John. Or if someone's crossed with me, like my mother used to be, it was Jonathan. So
Okay.
Take your pick. You can choose whichever one you want.
All right, John, cheers. I'm not entirely sure if this question should or could be answered by yourself or Alan, but as you're probably aware, at Griffin Park, we got the BFC PCC, like it's the Brentford Football Club Programme Collectors Club. And there's been a shop at Griffin Park for about 28 years. And something along those lines, way before that, and any profits have been submitted to the club, the football club. We've got a number of members, and we have meetings there, and a shop where we sell old programmes. Is there any chance of something similar being set up at Lionel Road?
We haven't discussed that, but happy to take that forward and have a conversation around it. I think we all know that we are on a pretty unique site at the new stadium at Lionel Road. It's incredibly tight, and every square inch of that stadium is being utilised, even to the extent where, you know, majority of new builds, club offices would be located in there. They're not in the new stadium. It's been well documented and talked about that we don't have a retail space within the new stadium for a club shop. So, you know, we've got an incredibly tight site. If we can carry on doing what we've been doing, then, you know, why wouldn't we? And, you know, we are starting to discuss internally about our other retail opportunities in and around the environment, be they pop-up shops, be they permanent shop facilities in the new development, or other areas around the stadium. So listen, I'm more than happy to take that conversation offline with you and see what we can do.
Will I email you, John?
More than happy to, yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, John.
Hi, Simon. How are you?
Yeah, well, thanks. Now you've been there for a while, and thanks for doing this. What are your thoughts about the long-term commercial potential for the club?
I think that's, you know, other than the obvious things, I think that's the really the opportunity that attracted me to the role. You know, I genuinely believe that we kind of have all the ingredients to make a real success of Brentford from a commercial perspective. You know, we've got a brand new stadium that's got state-of-the-art facilities for GA, general admittance, and also our premium areas. We're in an incredibly unique location, you know, equal distance from Heathrow Airport to the West End. We're on the A4, M4 corridor. We don't have any baggage compared with other sports organisations in the market. I think we're, you know, we're quite agnostic in that approach in terms of, you know, we're not disliked. I think we're held in very high regard in terms of the way that we operate from a playing perspective. And everything that I want to do, Simon, from an off-field perspective is to emulate that on-field success. You know, we talk about taking calculated risks. We talk about doing things differently to others. We want to innovate. I think we've got an unbelievable opportunity to link our brilliant community sports trust with our commercial offering. Long gone are the days where you sell someone a sponsorship, stick a couple of signs up, throw them a few tickets, and they write you a check. It's all about activations, it's all about connections, and it's all about driving engagement with the local community. And you know, when I look at our local community, not just from a residential perspective and a catchment area, I look at the businesses in and along that golden mile. You know, we've got everything from Sky's headquarters at one end to Asahi at the other end, and in between we've got the likes of Delhi MC. We've got you know, some Sega. We've got some huge companies on our doorstep. You know, and they're all looking at how they, you know, how they can add value from what we call a CSR level, corporate social responsibility. And I think we've got an incredible platform for them. So, you know, I'm confident. I think we've got a tricky old backdrop to be in the marketplace at the moment, commercially. You know, we've not making excuses, but we've had the kind of Brexit thing cloud over us for a long period of time. We got through that, and we're now into COVID-19 pandemic. So look, we don't have the best commercial marketplace as a backdrop, but I'm confident that the way that we've constructed what we're offering to companies and corporates, we can be in a good place.
And just a quick follow-up, the naming rights, I mean, obviously if COVID hadn't happened, would you have been quite confident about that for the stadium?
I'm still confident about naming rights. You know, whether it lands as quickly as we hoped, it is still up for debate. We are in very active conversations. My personal view at the moment is that you don't push people, because it's easier for people to say no than yes when there's so much uncertainty around. We're in no hurry. We want to do the right deal, not any deal. And you know, and Matthew and the board have been incredibly supportive of that approach. And you know, as I said, I think you know, we're in a period at the moment where it's incredibly difficult. But you know, we're currently in a stadium that we've been in since 1904, and we're going to move into a stadium that we're going to be in for an awfully long time. So we want to make sure that the deals that we're cutting at the beginning aren't deals for the short term, but they're partnerships for the long term.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Pro.
Thank you, Simon. Mr. Bruzon, Nick.
Morning, everybody. John, given what's going on at the moment in the wider world, we don't even know when this season's going to finish, let alone next one start. Are we still looking to complete the season ticket sales for the end of May, where people put their deposits down, or is there going to be any extension on that front?
Do you know what? I think look, when the whole COVID-19 pandemic really started to grab hold, we thought long and hard about, do we hit pause on season ticket migration? And I have to say, I think my gut feel was we probably should. But actually, when we started to talk to the fans, we shut the sales centre down at Heritage Walk and put it onto a technology platform, the overwhelming reaction was let's keep going from the fans. And you know, I genuinely think you know, we're in a period of darkness at the moment, and I think, you know, that the new stadium, a season at the new stadium, is that light at the end of the tunnel for a lot of people. And the response has been unbelievably strong. So we want to make sure, I think we've definitely toned down the way that we're talking to people. Our marketing is not about scarcity. It is not about, hurry, 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 otherwise you're not going to get the best seats. It's all about now giving people the right information and letting them make an informed decision on whether they want to purchase or they don't want to purchase, depending on their financial circumstances. So, I'm really, really pleased and very proud of the way that our off-field team have responded to the challenge. I think people have genuinely enjoyed going online, looking at the seat views and making that transaction. It's a half an hour of enjoyment in what is a pretty unenjoyable time at the moment.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it was. It was great to be able to do it in person. I got in early, fortunately, and I'm looking forward to it all kicking off. I guess, in regard to the specific question, though, we are all due to pay up for the rest of this at the end of May. Is that still the intention?
So where we are at the moment, in terms of all of the season tickets sold currently, I've just got some numbers in front of me. Actually, we're effectively 7,600 season tickets sold, and that includes the dugout. 36% of those purchasers have paid up front. So, but the balance was split across 2 payment plans. There was one spread across 31st of March, 30th of April, and 31st of May. And then there was one where it was 25% and then 75% at May. Mm-hmm. What I've started to do this week is look at clearly the May date is the big one. That's where we're looking to collect the majority of the money. And what we're doing is some cash flow analysis at the moment about pushing that May payment into a third of it in May, a third of it in June, and a third of it in July, so that those that may be struggling can spread that pain, if you like, across those 3 months rather than it landing at the end of May. I had a long chat with Cliff yesterday, and he's very supportive of trying to make that happen. Clearly, we have to look at cash flow and make sure that we have the wherewithal to be able to do that. But I'm confident that we can come to the table with some help there.
Okay.
Thanks, Nick. So just staying on that point a second, John. So obviously there are a lot of people who've been laid off or furloughed or whatever else. Is there, if someone has specific issues, can they come to you and with a proposal, or is there a possibility to delay the payment completely, or are we looking at May, June, July?
Without wanting to sound cheesy here, we are a community football club. Matthew is absolutely adamant that we have affordable football for all of our fans. If you look at our ticket pricing that we've gone into the new stadium with, in certain areas it's at the same price, if not in some areas cheaper than currently at Griffin Park. We are not going to lock out or shut out anyone that has been loyal to Brentford, is a season ticket holder, but is going through a difficult time. We will have a conversation with them.
Okay. Thank you very much. Greville.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, John.
Hi, Greville.
There's been an expressed sort of desire and determination by all EFL clubs to get the season finished by hook or by crook. But the longer the delay lasts, how do you see this uniformity holding? Because what's in it, particularly for Division 1 and 2, and of course it's the whole pyramid, what's in it for a Newport or a Walsall? They've got to extend contracts of players they'd otherwise release. There'll be no media money coming in. There'll be no gate money. So do you see the whole thing falling apart?
I hope not. I think it's the one thing that has overwhelming support. but who knows whether that support will wane in the future. You know, I was pretty disappointed with some of the statements that football clubs made at the onset of the pandemic, which were driven out of self-interest.
Yeah,
you know, but you know, we, along with you know, I haven't heard anyone across the Championship say anything other than we need to get this season finished. You know, because we're in a season that has started and next season hasn't. So if anything needs to change for next season, that's perfectly within the gift of football to do, because it hasn't happened yet and it hasn't started. But, you know, we're all in this season. We all expect the remaining 9 games to take place. We expect a playoff structure and we expect an outcome. You know, and, you know, there are enormous ramifications and consequences if that doesn't happen. You know, so look, of course we want this season to play out, and you know, but that's not coming at it from a position of self-interest. That's coming at it from a position of being supportive with everyone else within the Championship. And I understand that the majority of the Premier League clubs are supportive of that happening as well, as are the football authorities, you know, from the FA to the Premier League to the EFL. So, you know, I genuinely think that there is the groundswell out there to get this season completed in its entirety. But Greville, who knows what's in the future? We just don't know. We just don't know.
All right. Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers, Greville. Oswald Spencer.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep. Go ahead.
Morning, John. I've got a quick question about how, because you said you came from the RFU and you worked a lot with the rugby background.
Yeah.
What was the backstory of how we managed to get a ground share? Was it a Brentford reaching out, or was it that London Irish coming to us, or what was the?
No, it all predates me in terms of my time at Brentford. All I can say is that you know, they're a good bunch at London Irish. They're incredibly excited about coming to the new stadium. They I think they certainly have adding value to us as a football club in terms of you know, our brewery excuse me, can't get the words out. The brewery rights. What we call the pouring rights at Griffin Park currently are pretty minimal, because as I've said on a number of occasions, our fans are the most adept in the world at getting into a stadium at 2 minutes to 3 on a Saturday. So we don't serve a lot of beer, but obviously going into a new stadium with a rugby partner in there means that all of a sudden our pouring rights, easier word for me to say, are a lot more significant than they were at Griffin Park, and all that value goes to Brentford. Yeah. So, you know, commercially really advantageous. You know, clearly there are challenges around kind of timing of games. Put everybody's mind at rest. We have absolutely primacy of tenure. You know, in other words, you know, our fixtures take place when we want our fixtures to take place. They can't play on there. If we're playing on a Saturday, they can't play on there on a Friday. You know, they have to play after us. So, you know, look, the way we play our football is on the floor. We want to make sure that the pitch is of the highest quality, and we've invested significantly in making sure that we have the state-of-the-art Desso pitch down. I was at the stadium pre the pandemic starting. The pitch is in unbelievable nick. It's going to be a great surface.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Yeah, hi John. Thanks for giving up your time for this. I'm not really going to talk about the stadium. I'm more interested actually about the manner in which Brentford Football Club is going to be, I suppose, really supporting the older fans. There's a general fear for myself, and I'm sure many other of the older generation fans will share this, is that we become customers. The new stadium attracts new fans, and effectively, you know, we're there to pay our money. And I think every fan who's listening to me now will agree that in the older days we were treated much more as fans rather than customers. I'm not necessarily saying we are being treated as customers, and I think Brentford Football Club has done an awful lot to try and avoid that. But as time moves on, especially if we were to move into the Premier League, how would you prevent that from happening, I suppose?
I think it goes back to my point a little bit earlier about, you know, Matthew was adamant around ticket pricing, that it's affordable football, and all of our fans, as current season ticket holders, have been able to take the benefit of the early bird pricing structure. Anyone that is what we call a newbie will be paying a different price. So, you know, absolutely, fan loyalty is really, really important to us. But I think stadiums aren't about the bricks and mortar. They're about the people inside the venue. And, you know, we've been really, really strong throughout the migration process of trying to get the right people in the right areas of the stadium. You know, that's why we went and spent a long, long time trying to make sure that we were looking after people with longevity in location, so that people that have been sitting historically with each other for many, many years have the ability to do that in the new stadium. Because that's what going to football is all about. It's about sharing those experiences with your mates and sitting with your mates. So, you know, I can honestly tell you that from our perspective, of course, we're going to attract new people. We genuinely believe that we have to do that in order to become, you know, a viable business. We can't, you know, we can't survive in the new stadium on smaller crowds. We need to grow our fan base. But we do absolutely everything we can to make sure that the journey from Griffin Park into the new stadium is as seamless as it can be for everybody. You know, I think what you talked about specifically about the older people. You know, between the board, we've just been doing some phone calls around to what I would call some of our more mature fans. We started with the 80-year-olds and overs, and we're now working through the 70s and up to 80s. And you know, all the conversations that I've personally had have been incredibly positive. That there is some real concerns that they have around parking and access in and out of the stadium. And you know, what I've promised that we would do there is go away and build up some Q&As for them. And Sally and her team in Fan and Community Services have been working up effectively a fan guide to the new stadium. But look, Dan, it is 100% our intention to make sure everyone is as welcome as they can be at the new stadium.
So ultimately, it's a case where I suppose we talk about the values that have changed over the years by being a Brentford fan. It's what it really comes down to. And I suppose what I'm looking for, I suppose, is a cast iron guarantee that the football club is committed to satisfying the values of both the older and the younger newer fans. Because, as I said, I think there's the worry I've got is that things change. As I said, we start feeling like customers. I've got to be honest with you, the moment that happens, I'm not in it anymore. And that's something that I think a lot of fans will feel quite strongly about as well. And I think that's something that I really want to try and push onto the Brentford board to continue and sustain for forever, frankly.
I think if you look at our core values of togetherness and community, we're all on the same page. Listen, there is a delicate balance in life between driving the business forward from a commercial perspective and holding on to your old heritage and your value. But I can honestly say that all of the people around the board, and you've got people like Stuart Purvis on there that looks after Bees United. You've got Monique from a diversity and inclusion perspective. You've got Donald Kerr that is incredibly well respected and linked into our Community Sports Trust. That they are our check and balance, and they will ensure that we make sure that we keep hold of all of those core values. And look, it's my job to grow the revenues for the business so that we become more sustainable. But look, I am also a Brentford fan, and I get what you're saying, and it's about finding that balance.
Hi, John.
Hi, Dominic.
My question is around replica kits. It's clear to see that the away kit was a huge success this season, both from a commercial point of view and from a fan's point of view as well. I still don't know myself whether I like the Jaffa kit or not, or whether I loved it or hated it. But my question is around that both home and away kits. First of all, what colour is the new away kit? And secondly, will the launch of the kit be delayed until the start of the season, or is this important for sales to get this out now?
Right, let's try and take that in your order there. Well, let me tell you, I looked at the sales figures for the Jaffa Cake kit, and it wasn't terribly popular. So let me put that myth to bed. In terms of the kits for this year, I think we've been delighted with both of them. I think the black kit is obviously been probably our most successful away shirt of all time in terms of its sales and its volumes. The kit for next year, you asked about, what colours were they? Home kit will be red and white. And the away kit, I'm not going to tell you. I don't want to spoil the surprise. Look, and I think in terms of will kits be delayed, look, we've been keeping in very close contact with Umbro, who by the way have been an incredibly good new partner for us. I think Dan's point about not forgetting the past and making sure you're in touch with your fans. Like Umbro are market leaders at that. They're really good. It is all about heritage, and it is all about their understanding of what fans want. And I think that they've been really, really good partners. And we clearly have a product in replica shirts where they're made, a lot of them in China, and clearly there are challenges around getting materials out of China, but we're on track to deliver the kit launches as and when we think we need to get them out there. So they go out well ahead of the season. My personal view is I love the home kit for next season. I think it's absolutely great. It's a slightly heavier fabric than the home kit for this year. I think you'll really, really like it. And as I said, I don't want to spoil the surprise on the away kit.
I didn't think we would get that answer. Thank you.
Morning.
Okay.
Thanks, John. Thanks for taking the time out to come on and chat with us today. Players have been, what I hear, kind of fairly proactive in reducing their wages or having their wages deferred. Can you just tell us kind of how important that is for the cash flow of the club right now? And can you give us kind of a little bit more detail on Sky's payments to the club? When was the next instalment, or do you have a season's kind of rights or money from Sky paid up front? How does the kind of structure of the Sky deal affect Brentford Football Club? And obviously, you know, assuming that they've got no games to play, does that mean that they're not going to pay their next instalment to the club?
We don't get a payment from Sky. So, but what we do get is payments from the EFL. So the contracts are between the EFL and Sky Broadcasting, and you know it's just one element of the revenues that flow from the EFL into Brentford. And actually, the EFL have been really helpful, and we've had advanced payments, as all of the Championship clubs have. So it's not unique to us. So you know, we received, I think last month, our payments from the EFL for the remainder of the Sky contract for this season. So that isn't a revenue stream that we're concerned about. As I said, it's not a contract that we're party to. It's an EFL contract with Sky. Clearly, there are other commercial contracts in play that the EFL have, which are incredibly important to us. The Sky Bet deal. There are other sponsorship deals in terms of, you know, Carabao with the League Cup. But I think all the signs is that the revenues are staying strong through with the EFL for the remainder of this season. Dave, what happens in the future? Who knows? You know, but currently we're in good shape there. In terms of the deferrals that we did with the players, I've got to tell you that the players were unbelievably helpful. They were you know, what a great set of guys. You know, some really important conversations that were had with the players, with Phil and Raz. You know, and we're incredibly grateful for the deferrals that we've managed to secure there. You know, as I put in the board's open letter, you know, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out our number one outlay is player wages. You know, it is for every single football club, the length and breadth of the country and throughout the world. So, you know, it was incredibly important to the cash flow. So, you know, we're very grateful to them. I think, you know, without blowing our trumpet too loudly, you know, we were quick to the pass on this subject. You know, and there are other Championship clubs and other clubs throughout football that are still trying to get those deals cut with their players. And again, I think that's testament to the way that the football department is run, its togetherness. You know, it's been obviously an important thing for us to get sorted, because it's going to help cash flow immensely.
And can I just ask one final very quick question? Is, you know, obviously we all assume that everything's going to be the same and everything's going to be all right, and, you know, the club aren't under threat in any way, shape or form. But can you give us as fans kind of an assurance or kind of some reassurance that, assuming that this does finish within a kind of a realistic kind of couple of months, 3 months kind of time frame, that Brentford Football Club are going to be all right? We've got enough in the reserves. We're going to see this through.
Well, if we just take your timelines there, we're absolutely fine. But everything else is then, you know, we're just speculating, aren't we? And look, I think I said at the beginning, we've taken measures to make sure we're as financially sound as we possibly can be. But, you know, there isn't an organisation on the planet that, if it has its revenue cut off, you know, and we haven't had our revenue cut off, but, you know, who knows what's in the future, won't be in trouble in a period of time. But we're in as good a place as we can be in a really, really difficult time.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Cheers, Dave. Stephen Clark.
Hi, John. Thanks
Hi,
very
Steve.
much. Good morning. Firstly, I'd like to say that, you know, obviously Brentford has been a brilliantly managed club over the last few years. I'd just like to ask whether you can give a bit of an insight about how you're coping with the current situation. We've got an end of a season to look forward to at some point, so how might that pan out? And how do you approach the issues of preparing for the next season, recruitment and retention, with that level of uncertainty? And what type of recruitment strategy is there in place in terms of looking for new players? Because each season we've been extremely successful in terms of finding some real gems through the scouting system. That must be very difficult at this stage. So I was really hoping that you might be able to give a little bit of an insight in terms of, without giving away any secrets, but about what's going on at the club at the moment.
You know, I know Phil and Raz are still working very hard, that the scouts are still looking at players. You know, business is carrying on as usual from that perspective. You know, so you know, but who knows what's happening in the future? You know, we're not in a transfer window at the moment. We don't know when that transfer window is going to open. We don't know when it's going to close. We don't know what the transfer market's going to look like when it comes back. So I think all I can say from that perspective, and it's not my area of the business, as you all well know. You know, I think we've got an incredibly dedicated and a really, really strong team of people in that area, and they're you know, I have every confidence that they are on their subject matter, and that they will have various plans in place depending on which scenario unfolds. In terms of kind of how we're operating on a day-to-day basis at the moment, you know, clearly there are some parts of the business that just can't operate at the moment. You know, but there are other parts of the business that are, you know, they're at full tilt, full capacity. You know, from a financial perspective, you know, Natalie and the finance team are having to play out various budget scenarios. You know, I think, you know, just so everyone's aware, I'm incredibly lucky that, you know, we've got a really supportive board. We've got a really supportive owner, you know, and we've got a chairman that is also kind of the chief financial officer for Matthew's other businesses. So, you know, I've got a chairman that is right across the numbers, and that's really important for me to have that. And you know, I think, you know, we're in as good a place as we can be, but there is just so much uncertainty in the future.
Yeah.
Hi, John. It's just touching upon one of the questions that was asked earlier about the commercial opportunities. I was just wondering if there was any plans to have sort of advertising on top of the roof of the new stadium.
It's an opportunity available to us. Yeah. Clearly, you know, we are on a flight path to Heathrow. You know, for many years, we even at Griffin Park, we had the KLM on the roof. We've had Qatar Airways freight, I think, on the Braemar Road stand. So, you know, we haven't moved too far from that flight path. So yes, it's definitely an option for us. but as I said earlier, we don't have anything anything firmed up at the moment.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you, Robbie. Clive Foskett.
Hi, John.
Hi, Clive. How are you?
All right, fine, thanks. Yeah, just to reiterate, thanks for you and all your team at Griffin Park for managing the club so successfully, and thanks to Matthew. Question was really, going back to what somebody else said, was about Griffin Park. The plans to presumably dismantle it and the plans for the surrounding development at the new stadium, are they affected in any way by all these delays? And the second part of the question was, is there any way you're going to provide us with the opportunity to take away a souvenir from Griffin Park?
This is all part of our cunning plan to stop you guys from pinching everything from Griffin Park before we finish there. No, I don't think it does anything other than just delay. Clearly we said earlier that we were fast approaching completion, and that is going to just get pushed back. So, as and when that all gets finished, we don't know the dates of that, Clive, those dates at the moment, Clive. I think we're very mindful that we want to take some of old Griffin Park with us into the new stadium, and we've looked at areas such as how we can refurbish the turnstiles and potentially make them into kind of tabletops for some of the bar areas, both GA and into the premium areas. Clearly, the trotter crossbar needs to come over, doesn't it? We need to get that into the new stadium somewhere. That
so we can all cry.
hung above one of the bars. But yeah, definitely we will be taking some of the old Griffin Park into the new, and we did have, and it's just on the back burner at the moment. We've hired a company to effectively photograph everything in the stadium, and we were going to put that up on an online auction where people have the ability to kind of buy certain bits of memorabilia, if you like, that were at the old stadium. But my particular favourite, and one that I did have a chuckle at when I first arrived at Brentford, and I was sitting in the chief exec's office at the far end of the Bramer Road stand towards the New Road end, and I looked out of the window, and you'll all be familiar with it. There's a sign in the kind of in the enclosure area that says "No ball games," which I thought is not the most appropriate sign for a football stadium. So I'm definitely going to take that one myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a final comment there was that I think it's a bit like moving into a new house. Unless you have some of the stuff from the old house that reminds you of where you have lived, then it's very difficult to transfer the culture, because it's a hard question for all us fans to know is how long it will start to feel like a new home as opposed to just a new place.
Yeah, and Clive, that goes back to my point about for us I think it's about the people as much as the bricks and mortar, and that's why the whole migration process. At one stage, we were going to do all of the migration online. It was literally going to be a free-for-all from an online perspective. But we thought long and hard about it, and we did a U-turn on it, and made sure that the migration process was done based on longevity and location, so that the right people were sitting in the right areas of the stadium, and that if you sat next to Brian and Keith and Phil for 20 years, that you're going to make sure that you're sitting next to Brian, Keith and Phil in the new stadium. And that was really important to us.
Thank you. And just say all the best for everything you and the rest of the team are doing. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
2 points. One is just to say thank you John, very much the way your team treated my family and I. We came to the new ground to get to pick our tickets. There was this guy called Josh who was fantastic. We ended up buying premium seats as opposed to standard seats that we've been used to for many, many years.
Rotten lot doing that to you, weren't they?
We're very happy. The new ground looks fantastic.
Good, good.
The second point was, do you think the bigger clubs have treat Brentford differently now than they did a couple of years ago?
I don't know if we're treated differently. I think that there is definitely a respect out there for the way that we go about our business. You know, we've talked about it many times about, you know, the way that the football department goes about its work. It is incredibly successful. You know, and I think, you know, I've been on record a lot over the last year or so to say that you know, it's my passion and my objective to make sure that our off-field team operates as effectively and as efficiently as our on-field team. So, you know, I definitely think that we're well respected. I think, you know, things like the deferral that we talked about earlier with the players, that we were one of the first clubs to get that done, shows that we are well organised. You know, and we have, I think one thing that we're very fortunate on is that we have a pretty small chain of command. You know, we've got Phil very close with Matthew and Cliff close with Matthew, me working alongside those guys. So if we want to move, we can move quite quickly. And I think that gives us a significant advantage on other organisations.
Fantastic. Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Thanks, John. First, I just wanted to say I think the club treats supporters, including especially long-standing supporters, much better than they used to be a few years ago. I've been a supporter for almost 60 years now, and I think the relationship is better now than it ever has been. The question I had was, is there any risk of us being effectively homeless if we have to move out of Griffin Park and the new stadium isn't ready? Is there any risk of us playing some games at the end of this season in a third stadium?
No risk at all.
Good, thank you.
Hi, John. Thanks for taking the call and thanks for doing this. Just two quick questions. First of all, if we were promoted and the new stadium wasn't ready, do you think you would get dispensation to start at Griffin Park, or would we do what Spurs did and request no home games for a certain period? And just one other one is, are you able to describe the type of events needed to gain the safety certificate and any indications what they might be?
Bloody hell, Ken, they're two tricky ones, aren't they? Right, let's deal with the safety certificate first. I think first and foremost, you know, and we used that word earlier, we are in unprecedented times, aren't we? And we were planning to have 2 test events, one in April, one in May. And I don't mind saying that, that one of the test events that we were looking at was potentially doing a live beam back of the Stoke City away game, where we would put that on the giant screens at the new stadium, get people into the new venue, and obviously starting to test it from that perspective. Clearly that's not going to happen. And there was another test event that we were planning through. You know, we have an unbelievably strong relationship with our local authority and our safety advisory group. And, you know, they're, I would say, very pragmatic people, and they understand the kind of unique challenges that are in front of us. And, you know, I think our close relationship with them and standing shoulder to shoulder with them throughout the build process of the new stadium, I think we're we're in a good place with regard to making sure that they're comfortable, that we will meet all the safety requirements that need to be met. So I'm not worried about the test events. Would I ideally like them? Of course we would, because we want to try out the facility. We want to iron out any inefficiencies, any quirks, anything that's not quite right ahead of the start of next season. So I think hopefully that deals with the safety certificate piece. Your question around was it about whether we'd have to go into
if we were to get promoted into the Premier League, clearly Griffin Park doesn't meet the criteria, would we seek dispensation knowing that literally the ground's around the corner? Would they force us to play at an alternative location, or would we try and defer our home games?
I think we're of the strong view that we will. That the new stadium, as I said, was so close to completion that that any time that is required between the end of this season and the start of next season, and with the limited work that's taking place at the stadium, we're going to be okay. So it's not something we're thinking about at all. We are planning for next season to be in our new stadium, and we're not going to deviate from that plan. But as we all said, we're kind of there's no point in trying to look into the crystal ball of what's happening in the future at the moment. Over the next 4, 6, 8, 12 weeks, we're all going to understand a lot more about what's going to happen for the remainder of this season and what's going to happen for next season. So, we're planning on being in our new stadium.
Much appreciated, John. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ken. Sean Butler, please.
Hi, John.
Hi, Sean.
Hi. Brentford is a family club, and I've got a season ticket. Next to me is my cousin. Next seat to him is his son, and I've got about 6 family members dotted around the various parts of the stadium. So I'd like to ask you a family Brentford question. Have you managed to bring your kids up to be Brentford supporters, and are they well and safe?
Thank you. Yes, everyone in the family is well and safe. My brother, actually, Richard, who is a season ticket holder, and his son Adam, who's also a season ticket holder, have had it, or think they've had it, but obviously haven't been tested. And my brother's wife was quite poorly with it, but they're all in. They're all fit and well now, getting a little bit of cabin fever like the rest of us. And I'm delighted to say that yes, my son is also a season ticket holder. So yeah, we've managed to make sure that the Brentford blood flows through all of the family.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Hi there, John. You've said how the new stadium gives us some new opportunities commercially. And one of those being the Women's Euros. Have we got any more news on what's likely to happen around that, and if there'll be any sort of Brentford involvement in that game? And you've also talked about Sky and your previous involvement with Dream Team. Is there any opportunity to bring back Harchester United? And
first, before we go into that, what strange world we live in. Trevor doing a commercial break on a Saturday afternoon there before the question. What a strange world. In terms of the first part of your question, can you just say that one again? Sorry.
Yes, you talked about new opportunities and new things we can do with the stadium we can't do now. So we've got the Women's Euros, obviously, about. And has there been any news on that, and also any Brentford involvement that's planned with that, around that, and bringing us into that sort of game, and then get onto the Harchester part for the second?
Yeah. Okay. Right. Look, I think we all know the Women's Euros now been delayed. We're still very keen to be one of the host venues for the Euros. I think it's, with my commercial hat on, I think it's a real another feather in our cap in terms of having other events at the new stadium. And, that is an event that is going to be broadcast around the world. So, what a great showcase for Brentford Football Club. So, we are planning to continue to be a host venue there. Again, the FA have been in touch. They've asked us if we're still keen, and we said we still are. But I think it's so far in the future that it isn't something that is, occupying a great deal of our time.
Sure.
In terms of the Harchester United, wouldn't it be good to get Dream Team back on the screens again and host it at the new stadium? I think from memory, I think most of that Harchester United footage was all Everton games, because Everton played in blue, and therefore it was an easy colour for them to change it to the purple Harchester kit. Genuinely, things like that were great commercial opportunity for Millwall, because as you've all probably seen, when outside broadcast or film crews arrive at any venue to start filming, they are the most fed and watered people in the world. So from a catering perspective alone, I think it was a massive benefit to Millwall. But I think that the reality is, with the new stadium, first and foremost, it's Brentford's home. Then it's London Irish's, and I think between those two, that's more than enough events for us for the foreseeable future, and obviously with the Women's Euros, I think that's the icing on the cake.
Great, thanks.
Cheers.
Thank you. Caleb.
Hey, thanks for your time today, John. I wanted to ask about the conclusion of the current season. What's the sort of sense around the club and the other clubs about the season potentially being played behind closed doors? And if that does happen, what do you think Sky via the EFL or the EFL themselves would do to compensate fans that were put out by that, in terms of, we've obviously paid for season tickets and away matches already?
Yeah. It's probably the trickiest of all the questions to answer, isn't it? Because I just genuinely don't know. I really, really don't. And I don't think, hand on their heart, there's a person on the planet that really knows. Even government level, EFL level, at Sky. All I do know is that the EFL, I think, did everyone see Rick Parry's open note?
Yeah.
Yesterday. The inference in there, wasn't it, that we're heading towards games behind closed doors, and I think that's probably the most realistic scenario, and therefore there is definitely a focus now shifting on what we can do with iFollow, and how we can ensure that everyone's getting their weekly diet of Brentford. But other than saying what I've just said, I don't think there's much more I can add to it, to be honest with you. I think it's wait and see, wait to see how things start to develop. But we're incredibly mindful of the fact that we need to find innovative ways to make sure our season ticket holders are able to watch those Brentford games.
Cool, thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Caleb. John, those behind closed doors games, how many ball boys do you think you're going to need? Because I think there's a few people on here that might apply.
Very good point. No idea. I'll come back to you on that one, Trevor.
All right, thank you. But my application's in.
Yeah.
All right. Who's next? John Scott, please.
Hi, can you hear me, John?
Hi, John. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. Not bad at all.
Good.
Trust you well yourself. I've really got one question and one thank you. I'm part of Bees United. Very proud to be part of that. But I'm also part of the West Country Bees. And we, alongside many, many other people, have flags within the current stadium.
Yeah.
What are the plans, if any, because not really reviewing the new stadium, is there any positions where those flags can go or not go? And really just the second one is just to thank the likes of yourself, Mark Chapman, Chris Wickham, Peter Gillam for all the support you give to the West Country Bees.
Well, thank you for that, and I'll make sure that's passed on to Pete and the other guys. To be honest with you, I haven't had the conversation about flags in the new stadium, so I'll be completely going into this blind. So all I can say is let me pick it up with Alan and his team, and we'll come back to you.
Hello there, John. Thanks for your time today. Really interesting. Couple of quick questions. First one, you probably will be able to answer. The second one, I'm not sure. In terms of your top team, if you had to pick 11 Brentford players from all the time you've been watching, what would that be, and why? And secondly, I live up in the Midlands, obviously come to every home game, but my lads who used to come and had previously had season tickets often can't now because they either play themselves or they've got sort of, lives. One of them lives in Nottingham. If they wanted to come to a home game at the new stadium, will there be any element of unallocated seating so that they could at least be reasonably near to me? Or is that not something within your sort of domain, as it were?
Let me start on that one first. We're targeting to do 10,000 season tickets. That's where we'd like to get to. And then we've got obviously an increased number for the away end. And then we've got our premium seats as well, which then does leave a balance of tickets that will be available for general sale. I think sadly, location-wise, I can't tell you where they'll be in the stadium. And they're not going to be in the prime spots, are they? Because we've sold all of those to people that are current season ticket holders that are migrating into the new stadium.
Yeah.
But 100% it is our intention of having, an allocation of tickets that go on general sale. So that they will go to the ball, but whereabouts there be, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that is a shame, isn't it? That families, for whatever reason, can't be together. But I guess it's inevitable.
It is, but genuinely, Jim, how do you do it? Do you say, well, for every season ticket we sell, we keep one spare seat, and then you're displacing someone that can't then, who is a season ticket holder, sit nearer. It's challenging. It really is, and but I think everything that we've tried to do is all about looking after those that have been with us for the longest. So, once you build your model from that, of course, those that aren't current season ticket holders or come on an ad hoc basis are going to be displaced a little bit. But I don't think there's any way around that, I'm afraid.
Okay.
My favourite team, I'm not going to do all 11. I think I did this for one of the match programmes. I think either earlier in this season. Yeah, I think it was earlier this season. Listen, I think I've seen games in the 70s, 80s, 90s. Obviously, in the 2000s, I was more working in my Premiership rugby days, so that was a lot of Saturdays taken up. But look, I think my favourite teams have been, when you've had the Blissets, the Holdsworths. I was a massive Francis Joseph fan. So I worked with Simon Ratcliffe's wife at the RFU, so I'm kind of quite fond of that era. But, I grew up watching Kamara, Hurlock and Bowles in the midfield, which was, an unbelievable experience. So, but I have to say, I think that the current crop of players that we have, I think you'd be hard pushed to displaced many of those from your best ever Brentford side, and I think that's what makes all of this so much more frustrating than anything, because here we are at a point where we had so much to look forward to. We're sitting fourth in the league. We're a genuine chance of promotion into the Premier League, about to go into a new stadium, and kind of everything's just been derailed for the time being. And I really fear for the player. Fear for the players. I feel sorry for the players that they put so much, and all the staff and all the coaches, that they put so much effort into, getting the season into such a good place. For it all to be paused at the moment is incredibly frustrating. And also for my team, the off-field guys and girls that, are often, the forgotten heroes, really, that they work incredibly hard to make sure that your match day experience is as good as it can be. All of a sudden that's been taken away from them. So it's tough for everybody.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that, John. It's great to hear that someone who ostensibly is looking at the business side of things is also, and I can hear the passion in your voice when you're talking about the football side of things. So I think we're very lucky. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, John.
Hi, James.
I just wanted to ask generally about what's it like being a CEO of the club you support, and have you found that conflict a bit difficult? I was wondering, have there been any decisions that you've made as a CEO that maybe as a fan you might have disagreed with?
How do I feel? I feel immensely proud. I genuinely do. And what a time to be in the seat. Other than this actual moment in time. I hope that I have some empathy with the fans, and that I am still one of you guys that has a season ticket, and so I think I can. I feel your frustrations at times, and but I think it, and so that gives me a good balance. But ultimately, I know that my job is to try and ensure that we grow our business, and I hate using that word, but I have to look at it from a business perspective. As I said earlier, I'm incredibly lucky that I've got a very, very supportive board around me, and above that board, I've got an owner that is also a fan as well. So, I think we're in a pretty unique place where we've got an owner that is a fan of the club. We've got a CEO that's a fan of the club, and we've got a board of directors that are all, some kind of long-term fans, but all incredibly passionate about our organisation. So yeah, I think that first day in March was a kind of frosty morning, and the comms team gave me this ridiculous scarf that was about 14 foot long that I had to wrap around my neck for a photo shoot. But yeah, it was a pretty surreal moment. Sadly, I lost my dad back in 1996. And I obviously said earlier that I used to go to games with my dad and my granddad. And I think those first few months were pretty emotional. When you walk into Griffin Park, and you park in the CEO spot and you go up the stairs. But look, it's a brilliant time to be in the seat, and I'm passionate about what we're all doing, both on the field and off the field. I think we we've got an incredibly dedicated staff around us all. And as I said 5 minutes ago, I feel so sorry for everybody that at a point where we have so much to look forward to, the handbrake's been put on, and that's challenging. And it's my job, and Phil's job, and Raz's job, and the board's job, and Thomas's job to keep the teams as motivated as we possibly can, so that when this is all over, we bounce back better and quicker than everyone else around us.
Right, thanks.
Thanks, James. Callum.
Hi, good morning, John.
Morning. Nice
Morning.
polo shirt.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Just a couple of questions. So firstly, I hope you're well. And I would like to ask, obviously, with the West End Alliance, thank you for all your help with that. What I'd like to ask is, how have the sales been in the West End so far? Are they selling well at the moment?
I don't have the data in front of me, but I know that it's been incredibly popular.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, those central blocks in and around you boys have been, taken up well.
Yeah.
So I think we're confident that we are getting everybody that is an Ealing Roader. They are moving into the West Stand. So we hopefully. You've all experienced it when you've been down at the sales centre, and if any of you have had online appointments, that we've really been pushing people to get into the West Stand.
Mm-hmm.
We get the fact that we need that as round as it can be, and we need that to become kind of our proper home end, and the catalyst for the great atmosphere that we hope we're going to generate at the new stadium.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And just one more question, sorry. I just wanted to ask regarding the club shop. It has been mentioned in the past, a pop-up shop possibly on stadium or match days. What's the plan with regards to club shop for next year in the new stadium?
The plan is that we agree that we need to have some form of retail presence at the new stadium.
Yeah.
I think what people should also realise is our sales now for all of our kind of merchandise, licensed product. We're doing about 50% of it now online. So, and the truth is, a shop during the week when there's no football on costs you money. It doesn't make you money. But we're also very mindful of the fact that people need to have the ability to buy stuff when they go to a game. So I think we will definitely end up having some form of retail presence. I said earlier that we, long term, I want to look at some of the retail sites that are going into the kind of plaza area that leads up to the stadium. But in the short term, we've got some plans in place that will enable us to do some form of retail at the venue. So, and also you've got to remember that, and what's good for us is that with London Irish going in there as well, that they're in exactly the same place, so that they need some form of retail. So actually, it makes sharing the burden that much easier if we need to make some investment in that area. And as I said, we've got Umbro, who have been incredibly supportive, who are also looking to help in that regard as well. So look, I can't tell you where it's going to be. I can't tell you what it's going to look like. But it is definitely something that we know we have to address, and we need to get in place for when we get into the new stadium.
Perfect. Thank you very much, John, and stay safe. Take care.
Cheers, mate. All the best.
Thank you. Cheers. Thanks.
Cheers, Callum. John Starsfield.
Yeah, thank you, Trevor. John, I'd just like to reiterate what John Scott said about the support that you've personally given and the rest of the guys at the club have given the West Country Bees. It makes a real difference. And to the guys that John mentioned, I'd also add Sir and Brett, who I deal with, who's incredibly helpful, and I'm very grateful for that. What I was really going to ask is what you think about the ticketing system. And by that, I don't mean the selling of the new season tickets, which has been really helpful. And I don't mean the unfailing helpfulness of the guys who actually man the ticket office. Lucy and Mads before just couldn't do more for you. But how user-friendly do you think it is in relation to things like the proper recording or the automatic proper recording of ticket access points? And another issue that we've personally experienced is the difference in age, whereby Brentford treats someone over the age of 60 but under the age of 65 as being an adult, but a club like Huddersfield treats someone over in those circumstances as a senior citizen, a senior guy, and how the ticket system doesn't seem capable of recognising that. And the final thing I'd say before you answer is I recognise that this was introduced before you arrived.
I can't believe we've been an hour and 40 minutes on the call, and this is the first time it's popped up. It's great.
But it might be getting slowly better.
Well, do you know what? I think it is getting slowly better. I think, and actually that's not fair. I think it's getting a lot better. And you should all, we've all talked about how successful the migration process has been and how everyone's enjoyed that. And actually the ticketing system has underpinned it. You know, all the technology behind the migration is that ticketing system. So, but we are also mindful and agree that it had a pretty poor start. And I think there was it the Rotherham game, first game up, wasn't it, of that season that we introduced it. I know we had a lot of issues around it. I think if we put our hand on our heart, I think that there was a fair amount of their problem and a little bit of our problem in terms of that we hadn't got as au fait with the system as we probably could. It is a work in progress, and it's kind of and we are continuing to do that. You know, debunk any myths. That system is coming into the new stadium. You know, we are committed to it because the thought of having to rip it up and start again doesn't appeal, both from a cost perspective and all of the efforts that everybody's put into getting it to the stage it is at the moment. And we acknowledge that there's still some clunkiness to it that needs sorting out. But you know, genuinely, we think it's a lot better than it was. It's not perfect. We're not perfect. We've made some mistakes along the way. But you kind of have my word that you know, we will continue to invest in it, and we will continue to try and improve it. We have a very detailed service level agreement with the provider, and we intend to hold them to those service levels. But you know, look, I can say no more than other than it's work in progress. It's the one thing that is integral to everything that we're doing on a match day. You know, it's so important that it's not something that we're prepared just to put up with. We want to make sure that it's as best as we can possibly get it.
That's really very kind. Thank you. Could you just are you in a position to say the length of the contract with the website ticketing providers? How long is that? You might not be able to say that. I don't know whether you are.
I genuinely, I don't know without going into the look at the contract. You know, I know that it's, you know, it's it certainly sees us into the new season, into the new stadium and beyond. So, you know, we will.
Penalty clauses you can enforce. But the final thing before we leave that is the relationship between the software on the ticketing site and the software at the turnstiles of the new stadium. Would that be now, are we satisfied that that's fully integrated?
Now, listen, he's been sitting silent for the last hour and 45 minutes. I might defer to my learned colleague, Alan Walsh here, and because I think Alan can tell you all about kind of venue access in the new stadium and how that's going to work. And hopefully I haven't thrown you under a large London bus here, Al.
That's fine. John, how you doing? Good to hear a great turnout today for this call. One of the key things we're looking at for the new stadium is to ensure that the technology aspect works and it makes it easy for the supporters, general admission attendees, and even away. So we've put in a ticketing access control points, so scanners that will, the technology level will read a barcode, will also have an RFID chip reader, so it'll be a bit like an Oyster card where you touch on it and it opens up and goes in. We're developing, where you've all experienced at Griffin Park, where a printed home ticket or your season card or your members card. One thing at Griffin Park, some people would have had a PDF would say ticket on their phone, but it couldn't scan at the Griffin Park entry turnstiles because the readers don't read that. The new stadium will read that, but we're also looking at developing having mobile tickets. So actually the ticket will be like a QR ticket on your mobile phone or smartphone that will scan on the turnstile as you enter. So the technology piece should be quicker getting in. As you know, Griffin Park has a manual operator on that line. The turnstiles are automatic, so you scan your ticket, it will go green for entry. You walk through and the tripod arm will rotate, and then you'll go in and probably try out the facilities of either the bar, concessions, and hopefully see a great game of football.
Lovely, thank you.
No worries, John.
And can I just say, we're delighted to help the West Country B, but part of the deal was that we get a case of your local cider brought up. So can you make sure that happens.
We'll get that organised when we start again, promise.
Yeah, John, thanks once again for all your openness and candour in dealing with the questions this morning. Really appreciate that. I really just wanted to build on the early questions from Nick and Dan re-ticketing. And I'm kind of curious as to the decision around price positioning with the premium seats versus the general access. I'm kind of curious particularly around the fact that there was the decision to extend the price fix guarantee regardless of whether we're in the Prem or the EFL next season to the general access tickets, but not for those of us who's kind of stumped up for the premium seats and presumably gave quite a good cash flow boost to the club through the licence income. So I know obviously that's related very much to how we position ourselves against the Palace and the Watfords and the West Hams, but just keen to get your perspective on that.
I think from a GA perspective, it was all about rewarding the loyalty of our season ticket holders in terms of those price freezes into Premier League. Clearly, the premium seats, I suppose, they go across two categories really. There's businesses that are acquiring those seats, and we only thought it right that if a company has the ability to entertain a client at a Brentford versus Wigan game or a Brentford versus Manchester United game, that there is a different price point. So we feel very comfortable with the 25% increase on premium. We think it's sustainable. We think it was the right thing to do. Clearly, we're very grateful for your support that you've kind of upgraded, if you like, from a GA into a premium seat. But that was a conscious decision made by you, that you could have had the ability to say, no, I don't want a premium seat. I'm not prepared to pay that increase in price. I'm going to stay where I am as a season ticket holder. So, listen, I understand the nuance that, you know, you're kind of in that kind of delta area, aren't you? Between you were a season ticket, you're now a premium. But you know, I think I genuinely believe we've made the right decision. I think it's still good, very, very good value for money. And the choice was yours.
Okay, thanks. Maybe just a couple of words on what you've done in terms of looking at the competition with you know, the kind of lesser London clubs that are already in the Prem. Do you know kind of where we sit relative to that for you know, the types of offering, not only at the premium seats but also the GA?
We are at the definitely the more affordable end, you know, and that's the right decision. You know, we all know that you know, if we're fortunate enough, whenever it happens, to get into that Premier League, you make your money through television rights and increased commercial activity. You know, and I've been at pains to say today, you know, Matthew's kind of cornerstone is around affordable football, and you know, he was adamant that, you know, if you've been a season ticket holder, that we look after you going into the new stadium.
Thanks, John. I really hope you get to levy the 25% uplift.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
I can ask a question. I think it's probably to the chap who runs the arrangements for the new ground. But the couple of questions was about virtual walkthrough. It's something that's been mooted about. I know we can do it when we buy the seats, but is it something, since we can't actually go to the ground now and we want to sort of maintain that excitement, that we could have maybe an enhanced version of that, which maybe does a bit more of the inside? Now, I know that there are some clips that are available on the community website, but I thought maybe there'll be something more that could be driven by the supporter to have a look around the ground. Another question was about cycling. So I know there's cycling bays at the stadium, and I assume they're also for local people that live in the area to actually use. I wondered whether there would be any reserved for match day use only.
Walshy, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, I can do. I can jump in. So reference the virtual tours. A part of our probably premium seat elements, we had an ability where people could look at the virtual reality of the stadium. How that really works is with a headset put on, so you can get a real feel for it in 3D. There was discussion just when this coronavirus came through whether to extend that out with the software. It was an element of cost to put it out, and whether we could put it out to the fans and so forth. So it's something that I'm sure will be looked at. We just went through the kind of season tickets migration piece. So it was whether it had value straight away or whether it's something we would bring online on a case-by-case basis, like click here and you can get the views from this corner or that corner. So it's definitely something that we have spoke about. We just haven't actioned yet. Primarily, we were trying to, you know, get your view of the stadium for the first time in the real deal, as in test event. So you get in there and see it in the flesh, opposed to virtual reality. So that's kind of the virtual tour side of things. The cycling bays, without quoting exact numbers, it's in excess of 300. It's about 350, I think, cycling bays that are located at the northwest and the east of the site, and then there's more on Line Road South. So we have, as I say, there's 350 of them cycle bays. Currently, I think they're to be used for match days and for non-match days. Do we need to reserve them? Some of them bays are on the football site, the actual land, so I'm sure they can be reserved for football users, because that's ultimately, I think they're all ultimately designed to have people using public transport or hopping on the bike and come to a game. So we can look at it. We haven't done any works to reserve specifically numbers because we're trying to see if the demand will be there for the 350. But I think once we monitor that and see what things go, there's no reason why we can't try and reserve them for our match days.
Okay, because it's like with people changing potentially their arrangements for arriving, it might actually raise opportunities where more people could cycle or potentially pick up free bikes from other destinations to make it into the ground. So I thought maybe it would be an opportunity for people to rethink that. In addition to that, there was that area behind the West Stand, which I think was originally a hotel, but now it's just open space car park. I know you've mooted about potentially retail sites and places to drink, etc. Some grounds that I've been to, they really use that as quite a hub area for building up an atmosphere at the start, especially as it's at the back of the home end, thinking of Millwall and I believe Newcastle and a couple of other places. Is there, can you maybe elaborate a bit more on plans for that area?
Yeah, I can jump in there again. So that car park area in question is actually our designated disabled parking for the stadium. It's also our overspill area for outside broadcasts as a Premier League requirement. We've hit Premier League requirements for the current rules, but there was discussion with Premier League that they may have to increase the OB compound, that's the outside broadcast compound, to up to 2,000 square meters. So that was identified as the extra from the 1,500 to 2,000 square meters area for Premier League requirements. I should say when, opposed to if, we will be there. So we've identified for that. You are correct in that it is a hotel site identified. So we're ideally, we have the ability on match days to close off Line Road South 2 hours before the match day and during the game and thereaafter. So there's other areas we're looking for, like a fan zone or a hub, or making a bit like what we did at Griffin Park 2-3 years ago when we kind of pedestrianised the roads all around it. It's a different feel to arrival on match day. It's much more sociable, and it's got the right feel to it. So we've totally kept that in mind for the new stadium. So I think with something like the Ladies Euros, they'll probably look at fan zones. We may look at probably a little bit further away, as well as identifying hubs for that. But at the moment, it is identified as disabled parking for our visitors on match day.
With respect to what you said to do with the OB, I'm a bit surprised about that. I know that an area has been designated under the stadium, and that was predetermined. That's quite a large area, and I guess at the time that was deemed as being sufficient. And also, there's already, I'd imagine they will use our internal camera systems and stuff that's up in the main stand. It's amazing how much technology they need.
Yeah, so the Premier League rules states that the outside broadcast compound has to be 1,500 square meters, and that's what we have. So we have the majority of that is under the building, and then we have uplink vehicles on the bays just outside it. That car park, as I say, is identified where the Premier League, as you know, they review their rules annually, and we're in discussion with them quite regular. They actually had a visit down at our new offices just over a month ago. But what they've stated is that the requirement for outside broadcast is that they feel that they may need more space. And how could we accommodate that was the question was posed to us, where we've identified stating that if it was used on a Super Sunday or something in that sort, that's when they would need that space if they change the rules. So we've just identified it, we've kind of captured it, opposed to having to find something that we don't have.
Okay, so it'd be an occasional use, I guess. Okay, thank you very much for the answer. I appreciate that. Thanks,
No worries at all.
Thank you. Just a last couple now.
I think just to add, it's as soon as kind of we have the ability to get back into the stadium where kind of lockdown is released a little bit, then we will get our videographers in there, and we will get some content out on our social channels obviously we've had this rogue fella fly a drone over there for the last couple of years, which has caused us no end of problems. But I think we've got enough drone footage, so I think we're now trying to get inside the stadium. And to also add, I cycled up Lionel Road this morning, and I can confirm that all the cycle lane is in there, and the cycle racks are all in there as well.
That drone must have caused you. Not saying another word about the drone. Right, Caleb.
Hey, cheers. Thanks for letting me have a second question. So just going back to kind of the ticketing system a little bit, is the ticketing system that we use completely integrated into the website? Do we have the same provider for both of them? And is there an opportunity to kind of relook at the website side of it rather than the software? Because it seems like the concerns that I hear and that I see come from the website part rather than that site. And also, when we move to the new stadium, will the ticketing system integrate with whatever loyalty system we have and the retail that levies are using, so that we can collect data and kind of understand our fans better through that way?
I'll start, Al, and you can finish. We currently, from a website, pure website perspective, we're part of the EFL's collective.
Yeah, sorry, John. I meant the actual bit when you go into the ticketing side of it, so that when you're physically purchasing rather than the EFL's kind of bit there.
Yeah, no. So 100%. We brought on board a guy called Mike Morris about a year ago, who another rugby connection. He used to be head of technology at the RFU. And that is a project that Mike is very much involved in, along with Alan leading, where we're making sure that everything gets to integrate. We're working with InCrowd. We have the app, and at the moment, my big challenge to the team is we've got a great app, but it actually doesn't have enough compelling content on it and enough functionality to really drive people to download it. And we want to make sure that is kind of at the forefront of everything that we're doing in terms of a technology piece at the new stadium. So, you know, there's definitely a desire from us up until probably about 5 weeks ago. We had at our new offices a big round table meeting with all of our technology providers. So that was Secutix from a ticketing perspective, InCrowd, our venue access control company. We had, and Al will give you probably a list of another 6 or 7 suppliers, where we got them all around a table and said, right, you all need to make sure that this is integrated, that it all talks to, you all talk to each other, both from a planning perspective, but actually from a perspective of making sure that everything is, you know, working as one unit. And we've done that. And I know that technology is very much at the forefront of what we're trying to do. Al, I've probably been a bit wishy-washy there, so go on, you crack on.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, you covered a lot of it. There's probably 2 aspects of it. One is the physical, making sure the tickets and the systems recognise it, let you in, and you know, from a safety operational point of view, we want people to have a valid ticket, come to a turnstile, it goes green, they go enter, and they know where they're going. So it's kind of self-contained. Whatever medium that ticket is, whether it's a paper, barcode, mobile ticket, you know, e-ticket and so forth. We have identified, you are correct in saying, you know, the website can be a bit kind of, it links through on this, and then you try and upload your numbers, and is loyalty coming through, etc. That is a huge piece that we find we're working through. We're looking at doing some tests, and the challenge is to do the tests remotely because of this current virus. But yeah, we've got like hand scanners which replicate ultimately kind of the same equivalent of turnstiles, and we're going through different measures to make sure the ticket generated, whether it's a ticket on a paper ticket or a card ticket, or new idea, which I alluded to earlier, which is a mobile ticket. We want to use the app. We want to use the Brentford app. We want to have the ticket loaded on the Brentford app. Even if you're a season ticket holder, you should be able to have it where, like a smartphone, that it validates. So your phone is your kind of your key to get in on the turnstile. The technology is there to do that. It's the integration, and you correctly stated. And the key thing is we've got to walk before we can run. What we don't want to do is say we can do this, we can do that, we can do the other. And the first day you come along and you kind of go and try, and it doesn't let you in. You're saying this, it's got to access control. Thereafter, it's the other bit. So to answer your question, we're working to make sure we do the trials from pre-production and then production kind of lines to make sure physically the ticket will let you in on all the different mediums and on the readers and all the different how it's presented. Thereafter, that is then kind of linking that up how, for example, I know ticket exchange, credits on that, coming back to accounts, how we can maybe transfer tickets, or tickets are being transferable, or how people can buy tickets and we get the data and you have to download the app, etc. So it's that technology piece and some of the kind of high level pieces is working with, as say, Mike Morris, our technology guys, and the companies ultimately that are providing all of this. That's the idea for testing as well. We wanted to do a test them or the test events. We're testing them behind the scenes, if that makes sense. So I am aware of that. The website, I think, needs to be a bit more simpler and intuitive in that line, so you can kind of link and it links through and you're not having to load a different screen and you've got to go back and what am I doing? It needs to be a bit more user friendly. And we acknowledge that, and we are working behind the scenes to improve that. I think the big thing as well is asking you guys. I mean, we've loyalty is the final piece you asked about. We have loyalty on a system that was working through with like our access control system at Griffin Park is a company called Team Card that they did really great with us, and they've got the loyalty on their systems. Now we're changing to a different access control system at the new stadium, and that's because it can give just a lot more information on data. But we have to transfer the loyalty from one web provider to another and filter that through. So there is an element of risk in that. There is an element of making sure it's right. And there's probably an element of open and transparency, maybe asking the question, what have we got this right? Have we not? Where the loyalty can go and how you can actually get that loyalty back, whether it's retail. I don't know if John alluded to it because I was slightly a bit late getting in on the call. The new stadium is going to be cashless. And we want to say, does that mean we want basically, if you go to a bar now or go to a restaurant, you can pay on your debit card or your credit card or your Apple Pay or your Google Pay. It's the same principle we want to have at the new stadium. But we might be, we're looking at the technology, whether the season card can actually be linked to do that debit kind of process as well. So if you forgot your card, you can pay on your season card. It doesn't mean you load up on the season card because we don't want your money kind of sitting in there, even though our finance people probably say, what are you saying? Of course we do. But if that makes sense. So when you touch your season card, that would approve to your bank account to purchase what items you have up to a certain limit. And that's what we're working.
Yeah, and I mean, just to follow up, in terms of having multiple vendors, is that a Brentford Football Club thing, or is that a general thing in kind of the stadium and event kind of, venue industries? Are we unique in having that many? Because I know that more vendors can equal kind of less integration and interface and issues getting data out places.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a ticketing company which we spoke about, which is Secutix, and I think one of the guys on earlier was on about service level agreements. First year, when we came in, and I know it was the season before last, a season before this one. Yes, it failed on the first few games from allowing access control coming through. This season, the service level agreements we had down is basically they had to prove to make sure we didn't have another repeat of Rotherham. They delivered on that, and moving forward. And it's the same thing to the new stadium. They've been told that they have to deliver from day one. So that's your ticketing system. Then you've got the access control that works with the ticketing system. So that is your, for example, just to name some people in that we have HID, you've got Fortress, you've got Ski Data, you've got Team Card. There's kind of 4 or 5 kind of companies that do that. So if you go to a lot of the Premier League clubs, Wembley, for example, is a Fortress system. It's the access control, but Ticketmaster do the ticketing. So that kind of thing. So we got Secutix doing our ticketing. We've got, as I say, a company that is doing our access control, which they're a big company and they're using their technology, which we're testing, which is far advanced, and actually lets us as the club have that data where a lot of other companies don't. So when we have that data, it means we can use it to benefit from concessions, to retail, to loyalty, in other ways to give back to the fans.
Yeah. So, for example, say a Man United wouldn't have one company doing everything; they'd still have separate people doing things.
Correct. Man United have Man United have Ticketmaster Junior tickets, and then they've got I believe it's either Fortress or Ski Data. I think it's Fortress actually. They have as you enter, which is the access control.
So the way that we're set up is in line with
correct.
Football clubs.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
And the other thing we're bringing in is as John alluded to, is an in-crowd. In-crowd do the app, which is the mobile ticket app, which is another format of that, and it's so we're working with, we're working with people,
aren't they?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think one thing, to apologies to Hog and extend, but you mentioned going cashless, and I think that's a fantastic idea. I think that cashless is the way forward. That coming back to Dan's point earlier, it's important for everyone on the call who's kind of in a position of responsibility in the club to work out how we can manage that with some of our older fans as well, and whether there's a way of kind of supporting them through that process. I think that lots of similar leisure and retail industries are going to have to do the same, but I think I trust you guys to do it. But it's one thing to maybe make aware about. It's fantastic news we're going cashless.
Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, Caleb. Just got a couple more, see if we get through quickly. John Scott.
Hello, John. Just a quick question following up, John. I doubt if you'll be able to answer this question, but is it clear or cloudy cider?
I'll leave that choice to you, mate.
And the second one is we got a lot of marketing from Marcus Gale on Twitter the other day. Have you got one of those?
Oh no, I've got one of these, but
No. You've got to have one of these.
Right, well,
so we know that Peter Gillam's got one, Mark Chapman, etc. So we'll bring one of those up, and we expect you to use it in all marketing opportunities.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
Wrong band. Right, finally, David Lane.
Oh, I've got the last question, have I? Okay. Well, it's just more of an observation, a request, really. So thanks for doing that, and you've answered some really serious questions. The one thing that I've got stuck in my mind, when we come out of this, can you make sure that Trevor is able to dress up as a ball boy? Because I can't get that out of my head.
Horrible thought, isn't it? Horrible thought.
Cheers. Stay safe.
I'll be like the one from Swansea, don't worry.
I've got a challenge for Trevor that by the start of the next meeting with Sammy and Kev, I want that picture of Andy McCulloch hung on the wall.
You have to come around and do it then.
I'm not going round your house, mate, that's for sure.
Right. Okay, well, thanks everyone. Obviously, we're all stuck indoors while other people are doing, people at the NHS are doing their bit, and I think we've got one of the Draper family on from Nurse Jenny, so special thanks to her and anybody else who's associated with Brentford that's doing their bit, either with the NHS or other key workers while we now run about football. So thank you very much.
This is obviously my mum. You may have seen I tweeted about her on Thursday. And thank you everyone for all your support. It really does mean a lot. That everyone in the NHS, I think, is appreciated for all their hard work. Mum won't speak now because she's speechless again. But thank you everyone for all your support. It really does mean a lot, and let's just keep positive, stay safe, everyone, and do what we can to get through and get back to Griffin Park as soon as we can.
And I had a lovely call from Thomas, so thank you very much for that.
Well done, good. Well, thank you for all your support.